And I'd like to remind you that for more Microsoft webcasts, you can go to microsoft.com/webcasts. And thanks again for joining us for today's webcast, a lot around runtime intelligence. Now it's my pleasure to turn the floor over to our first presenter today, Doug Seven. Doug, you now have the floor.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning. Internally, from my perspective as a product manager in the Visual Studio product, I'm super excited about this technology. I've known Sebastian for quite some time. I've watched some of their products develop over the course of time, and just some of the things they're doing are just unique and innovative and really creative ways to collect runtime intelligence and make it useful to you in your applications. So with that, Sebastian, it's all yours.
CodePlex is Microsoft's open source project hosting website. You can use CodePlex to create new projects, to share with the world, join others who have already started their own projects, or use the applications on this site and provide feedback. And it is this latter capability, the ability for anyone to download, use, and provide feedback on the 14,000 plus projects and the millions of downloads that have resulted that qualify CodePlex as a bona fide app store. Developers work on their projects and users download the resulting apps. Well, Microsoft is leveraging runtime intelligence here to provide what I like to call open analytics. Runtime intelligence that is made immediately available to both the development and end-user communities simultaneously. As far as I know, there is nothing like this anywhere in the open source community. Here's how it works. Preemptive provided commercial credentials for runtime intelligence to the CodePlex team, and they, in turn, share their credentials with the 14,000 development teams with CodePlex projects. The developers can then use the community edition of Obfuscator included with Visual Studio 2010 to instrument their applications. When users opt in, their usage of the instrumented applications stream to Preemptive Solutions' commercial runtime intelligence portal. Then, CodePlex extracts summary usage data and surfaces project-specific data inside the CodePlex site as an extension to their standard project analytics tracking, such as downloads and page views. Now, when visitors are evaluating what open source apps they may want to use, they can use this telemetry to help inform their decision. They can even drill down and back into our commercial analytics repository for much more detailed usage information. Of course, the development teams also use this same data to improve usability, quality, and customer experience as well. Let's take a look at all of this by drilling into two projects that, by the way, have nothing to do with preemptive. They've just simply incorporated runtime intelligence into their development process. Here we see the project Scrum Sprint Monitor, and it is built for development teams looking to better manage their sprints. Probably a lot like the people on this webcast, developers who care about building better software. And as we move across on the site, you see the familiar analytics that you expect to see in an open source repository. You can look at page views and visits and downloads, but now you can actually see application runs. This is the number of times that the Scrum Sprint Monitor has run in the wild. And you can look at more detailed information as well. And again, it shows up first with the most common statistic of downloads of this project. But as I scroll down, I can actually see the real-world usage of this software over time. And here's where I can drill in and back to the commercial repository to see even more detailed information. So the first thing I'll see as it pops up is the more detailed and, in fact, more current usage of the application. You can see that here. I can separate out by multiple versions, so will automatically detect as versions evolve. And of course, you can do comparisons and drill downs and other slicing and dicing. But what's also interesting is I can, for example, see all of the operating systems or the distribution of operating system adoption, runtimes as well. We can even do geolocation. Turns out that this project is headquartered out of Portugal, and so you see a cluster of activity there as well, but it's obviously worldwide. I can also drill down and look at feature-specific activity. And what's important here is that we're not measuring every single method or every single move by every user. The development team has identified the specific features that they feel are important in driving better, smarter, faster decisions as to where to spend their valuable development time. So you see here they want to know how the application is being deployed through standard installation or through click once. They're interested to know if there's 2 monitors on the developer's desktop. That impacts usability and design, obviously. And they're interested in what agile templates are being used. Again, various workflows and things to understand. So what's powerful here is that both the development team can focus on how software is being used in the wild to make better decisions, and end users can look at things like, is there built-in support for the template I'm using? Now, if we close that down, we can look at another application, Skype Voice Changer. Now, this application is sort of a fun application. What it apparently does is it will alter your voice on Skype and give it all sorts of special effects. It's a very popular application. You can see here it's being used a little bit more heavily, almost 2,000 runs in the last 7 days. But what's interesting about this particular instance is this development team is using the commercial SKU of Obfuscator. So they have some additional features available to them, and we'll just show you one. So I'm clicking back into the commercial repository of runtime intelligence. And again, you see the heavy usage. But now when I drill down and I look at some of the features, we'll see a particular feature that's very popular, the add effect. And add effect is essentially, it's a dispatch method, or it's a common method, and knowing that a user is adding an effect, it's not that interesting, because why else would you open up this application? What's important to me, or to the development team, is what effects are they adding? And so what Obfuscator, the commercial SKU, is able to do is it's able, again, with no programming required, to inject the ability to capture the parameters, the selections of which effects are being chosen in the wild by users. So now when I click on this screen, here I can actually see the popularity of the Bad Bus Mojo versus Delay Pong or Flange Baby. I can also see, well, these are, perhaps people are choosing these features because they like the name of the feature, and then once they hear it, they don't like it, and they immediately turn it off. So I can also compare that, and I can look at remove effect, and I can see which effects are being most commonly removed. So again, we're able now to capture not only where the application is running, on what stack, what features are being used, but even the decisions that users are making, and capturing that by capturing the data inside the application. Again, all with no programming, all done post-compile. Now, another aspect that makes CodePlex such a great demonstration platform is that we can look at both sides of this coin. We can also dig into the code itself, and I encourage everybody here to go to CodePlex and find these projects and check them out. But I can, for example, go to source code, and I can click on the latest release, and I can browse the code. And I can even open up the configuration file. And again, this is not coded. This is generated automatically through Obfuscator. And you see they've even made this comment here. But as we go down, you can see the credentials, of course, which are CodePlex's credentials. You can see where they're setting their opt-in, opt-out element. So they have a method that prompts the user to opt in and opt out. They've chosen not to encrypt their signals. And we can go down, and if I can quickly find an example, here's one of the add effect. That was that method. Well, that's the name they gave it. The real method name, of course, is called RI add effect. And all they had to do when configuring is select that they wanted all the parameters, and that is what sent up the feature choices. They selected a tick, which is just a count of the number of times this is being used. They could have done a start and stop to actually see how much time people are spending inside this feature. Again, I encourage you to visit this project or any other, look at the source code, look at their opt-in, opt-out policies, look at the overall pattern and practice of how they're doing instrumentation, perhaps to give you some guidance as to how to best capture, measure, monitor, and ultimately prove and improve the value of your application development work.